Welcome back to another episode of Let Me Tell You a Story. And I am one of the hosts, Marvin Carolina Jr., and I am so excited for all of you to come back and join us. Also, I have with me Stephanie and Pete, and we're going to do our thing again today and have a good time. Stephanie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, Marvin. Like I always say, I'm bringing the joy.
And Pete, you've been the world traveler, so you've been traveling around. So are you a little jet lagged at all?
Little jet lag. Got back from Athens, Greece last night. So, but yeah, Pete Athens School of Selling in Athens, Greece. Doesn't get any better than that. And so great to be here. And I want to hear some stories and share some stories. Let's do it.
Good deal. I want to start off with a story. And when we did our introductions, I told you that Pete and I went to high school together many years ago. And we went to a small private high school in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I mean, our graduating class, and Pete, correct me, we had about 112-ish people in our graduating class. So it's a small school, very focused on academics. Academics are the first three priorities, maybe sports and the arts come after that. But our senior year, we had a basketball team. And believe me, we didn't scare anybody when we got off the bus. No one was like, oh man, these guys are really good. But we just kind of blinked and we're like 10 and 0. We're undefeated. I mean, and we're beating teams, and it's kind of like, do you guys realize we're undefeated? And now we're playing in Peabody High School was the number one team in the city our senior year. And we're scheduled to play them in their gym our senior year. And we go in there and, like I said, they're thinking they're just going to beat the daylights out of us. Halftime, we're winning. And so I have a few friends on their team who I grew up with when I was little, and they were just upset with each other. And we end up winning the game. And we had a fantastic season. I mean, we were 20 something, 28, 29, whatever, 30 and 3, 2. We maybe had two losses the whole season. One of the things that I emphasize on that, when you are working with a team, everyone has to sacrifice something. We had a team full of people. Our number one, Dean, who was the number one scorer, was probably ranked number one or two in Western Pennsylvania. But we had to sacrifice something. I'm a big time football player at the time. And now I'm like the fifth option. They're not running any plays for me. I set screens, I rebound, I try to get steals, I guard the tough people. There's no glory in what I'm doing. My point of this whole thing, you tell a story and then what's the lesson learned? Everyone has to sacrifice something. Tommy was our captain. Maybe I should have been captain. Why can't I be captain? I was captain of the football team. Nope. Tommy was our captain. Everyone has something to do. Pete had to play defense and he had to shoot. He understood his assignment. Me and Steve were down low. We just get rebounds. To have a team, you have to have a successful team. Everyone has to give up something, whether it's their pride, their ego, the amount of points they score, whatever that is. That's the way a good team works. Communication is key. All of us knew exactly what we were supposed to do, why we were supposed to do it, and that's critical to being successful. So when you have a successful team, understand everyone's not going to get what they want. And it's not only in sports. This transcends over to business. You're on a team, you think you should be the lead because the lead's the one who gets promoted, and that's who gets paid more. And that's how play your role and it'll come around to you. So I wanted to share that story. That's one of the stories I really like to talk about because I deal with a lot of teams and everyone wants to be the leader and everyone wants to be the person presenting and everyone wants to do this, but that's not the way it works. So with that, let's start some of these stories. Let's hear some of the stories. I want to start.
Well,
Go ahead. Go
geez,
ahead.
I can't just let that go and not talk about it. I might cue up Bruce Springsteen "Glory Days" in the background a little bit while we're talking about it. But man, I just have so many fond memories of that season. The team chemistry, the camaraderie. Practice was fun. I mean, we went and we pushed each other so hard in practice, and we lifted each other up. And you were 100% right, Marvin. We really didn't care about the stat sheet. We cared about the wins and losses, and everybody did what they needed to do to make sure that we won. And it was really rewarding to see that come together because you know I'm coming off the bench, and the year before, arguably was a much more talented team and not nearly as successful as that team. And I do, just like you said, the willingness to come together, to sacrifice and pull together with the team chemistry was everything, and the kind of the friendships that we forged, where we made fun of each other, man. You only tease the ones you love. I mean, it was good, man. The practices were ruthless and hard, and it just made the games, that much easier. And
Yeah,
for you to, and I got to give a shout out to Marvin, because of course I was going to buy his book when he wrote his book. Everyone that's listening, you need to pick up a copy of Let Me Tell You a Story. It's fabulous. As I was turning the pages, I found myself nodding my head, just reflecting and identifying with, so many of the stories. Marvin was so humble. He didn't even tell me, hey, Pete, I got a whole chapter in there about our team, right? And all of a sudden I get to it and I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. And for Marvin, the best athlete in our high school, to remember our team and me, who was just really a sixth man like that, absolutely, made my day, week, month, year. It was awesome. So thank you, my friend.
it was fun writing it. But it's really critical to understand teamwork. And I can't explain to any, Stephanie has a team of her own, and she has to make sure everybody has a voice, everyone feels comfortable. And, that's what we were about on our team. So it was really good. Really good. Stephanie,
I love that, Marvin. It took me back to my high school days. I wish I had the same glory story, but at the end of the day, we were 2-20, but we were still a team. And it reminds me of the acronym Together Everyone Achieves More, right? That's team. And the moral of your story is just that. If you work together, if you play your position, whatever position that is, and you support the other people in their role in their position, you really are able to gain more. Whether you're losing or winning, if you're collectively working together as a team, then you're able to push each other and drive for success, even if it's later on, right? Because you're figuring out the right way to make things happen. So
yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and it's funny because basketball was, I can't remember whose main sport it was. It wasn't my
Team.
main sport. It wasn't Steve's. It wasn't. Most of us played soccer, baseball, golf, football. Those were our main sports. This was just kind of a sport we played during the winter to stay in shape. So it wasn't like something we focused on. Now, Dean, it was his sport. So I get that. But the rest of us, it was just something we did in the wintertime to stay in shape, and it ended up being really good. So I just wanted to tell that story to kick us off.
Okay, that
Stephanie,
sounds good.
do you have a story for us? Let's get us
I
going.
do have a story. I do have a story. So I have a story from Jaya I, out of she's out of Virginia, Sterling, Virginia. All right. So her story set is titled When Shopping Turned into a Question. When shopping turned into a question. So Jaya I was shopping with her daughter, who loved science and space. And something about the experience just did not sit right. The racks were full, but nothing reflected what her daughter was actually interested in. Everything felt disconnected from who she was. It was the kind of moment most people would move past, but Jaya did not. With a background in fashion and merchandising and experience as an apparel buyer, she understood how products are selected and why certain ideas never make it to the rack. She knew this was not an accident, it was a gap. Instead of waiting for the industry to catch up, she decided to build something herself. The decision became Svaha USA, a woman-owned, size-inclusive brand known for organic cotton dresses and apparel inspired science, literature, art, and curiosity. The goal was not to create something complicated. It was to create clothing that people could actually relate to and wear comfortably in their everyday lives. Building the brand came with its own challenges. It meant finding the right materials, working with partners who understood the vision, and designing pieces that felt expressive without being overwhelming. There were moments where it would have been easier to follow what was already working in the market, but that would have meant losing the reason the brand existed in the first place. Jaya chose to stay clear of that reason, on that reason. That clarity shows up in the details. The use of soft, breathable, organic cotton, sizes that range from extra small to 5 extra large, 5XL, functional pockets that customers immediately appreciate, designs that feel personal without trying too hard. And over time, the response made it clear that the idea resonated. Customers were not just buying the clothing, they were connecting with it. They saw themselves in it, and that made the pieces feel easy to wear and return. Looking back, the turning point was not just the moment in the store, it was the decision to take that moment seriously and act on it. The lesson that continues to hold is that meaningful ideas often start small. When something feels off, it is worth paying attention to. When the idea is built with clarity and consistency, it creates something people recognize and turn to without needing to be convinced. That was
Wow.
John Carr.
Wow.
Yes.
Pete, do you want to go first? Or you want me to jump in here?
Yeah, no, I'll jump in. And it's funny as we go through this, and you hear what the storyteller, the author, picks out as their lesson learned. But to me, I picked out a couple of other things that I really enjoyed. Number one, she's being really true and genuine with her identity, right? Hey, I got a different idea, and I'm going to go against the grain a little bit. And sometimes that's hard, right? It's much easier to just kind of go with the flow. But she had this vision of what she was trying to achieve, and she stuck to it, and was true to that. And I think that's just such a wonderful lesson. Sometimes we search, so much for affirmation and validation that, like, we kind of give a little bit of ourselves rather than just truly be genuine and committed to what we want to try to be and what we stand for. So I really commend her for that, and that's what really jumped out of me out of that story.
Yeah, for me, I do business, I do business coaching, I do business teaching. The immediately thing that jumped out to me was the risk. When we talk about business, a business idea, it all becomes, oh, it just could, well, maybe we'll do this. And all of a sudden, it comes front and center. There's risk involved in this. And do you want to move forward to execution, or do you want to continue to talk about, well, I have an idea. You've had the same idea for the last 20 years and you've never moved on it.
Yes.
She actually moved on it. And she ignored, I don't want to say she ignored the risk. She embraced the risk. And she moved forward with an idea. That risk is paralyzing. And I've heard people tell the same story over and over and over. Oh, I walked through the store and I saw the clothes, and I wanted to do organic clothes and a breathable. I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it, and never actually executed it because of the risk. And so hats off to her. And that is absolutely wonderful that she was able to move past the risk and actually get something done. So I think that's the biggest thing that jumps out to me. What about you, Stephanie? You read it obviously, but you have any closing comments on it?
Yeah, I'll share that. I mean, what stood out to me is that we have choices.
Yes.
And a lot of times we tend to, this isn't anything, but you walk into a store, you walk into a restaurant, the choices you have are the choices they place in front of you, right?
Yes.
Sometimes those choices aren't necessarily what you really want, but you do it because it's the only choice you have. But in this story, Jaya really listened to her inner discernment, her inner, thoughts, and how she wanted her daughter to be able to be connected and individualized, right? Be able to show who she is through her clothing. And so that thought turned into action, but realizing that the choices that are placed in front of us are not always the choices we have to make.
Right.
Sometimes the choice is, let me move in a different direction to do something different, to take the risk, right? So
Awesome.
I appreciated that while we have choices in front of us, we also have the choice to make another choice.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's what I kind of walked away with.
Amazing. Amazing. All right, Pete, keep us going. You got a story to tell us?
I do. We've got a great story from Michael, and he has titled it "When Busy Stopped Being a Good Sign."
Mm.
Everything looked like it was working. The team was shipping consistently. Deadlines were being met, and there was a steady sense of momentum across the organization. It was the kind of environment most companies aim to build, where productivity is visible and progress feels constant. He had spent several years leading large engineering teams, so this kind of output was not unusual. On the surface, it signaled that the system was functioning well. But during one review, a simple question came up that shifted how everything was seen. What is this actually doing for the business? It should have been easy to answer, but it was not. The team could point to what had been built and delivered, but tying that to measurable outcomes was less clear. The issue was not effort or capability. It was that success had quietly been defined by how much was being produced rather than what it was achieving. At that point, there was a decision to make: continue optimizing for speed and delivery, or rethink how progress was defined. The easier option would have been to keep going. The team was already aligned around shipping, and changing direction would introduce friction. Still, the decision was made to shift the focus. Instead of asking what was being built, the conversation moved toward why it mattered. Roadmaps became less about listing features and more about identifying expected outcomes. Delivery was no longer treated as the end goal, but as the starting point for evaluating whether something was actually working. This change required adjustment across the team. Fewer features were released, but each one was more intentional. Discussions became more focused on impact rather than activity, and success was measured by results instead of volume. Over time, this led to clearer priorities and stronger outcomes. That experience reshaped how progress was understood, especially as AI began to accelerate how quickly teams could build. When creating new features becomes easier, the challenge is no longer execution. It is deciding what is worth building and understanding whether it creates real value. The lesson that continues to hold is that output does not always equal progress. So fantastic story from Michael there.
Right. Here's my thing. Change is hard. And I know people say, well, we just change. No, when you have an organization and you have people who are used to certain things going certain ways and that's doing things a certain way, change is extremely difficult. So hats off to them to making the shift, especially when things are working pretty good. So it's those companies, and those organizations, and those individuals who embrace change and say, okay, I'm okay with it, bring it on, opposed to we're changing again. That has to change. I thought everything's going all right. But you have to pay attention and you have to get to the point of change before you need to change. You change because it's part of your strategy, not because things stop working well. So hats off to an organization who makes these changes before they're necessary, so to speak. So that's the first thing that, that kind of really jump out to me is that change is not easy. And you have people who grew accustomed, and it doesn't take long. In the first six months to a year, I'm used to doing my job a certain way. I come in a certain way. I drink my coffee a certain way. I drive a certain way. And now you're asking me to change how I do my business throughout the day. So it's hats off to him. But the change is difficult. Stephanie,
Yeah, it's like you get on autopilot sometimes.
yes.
And sometimes I could be driving home, don't even know how I got there. My car is just going the way that it always goes, right? And I intentionally drive different ways to make sure I don't get caught in that rut. But what I heard in this story was about why diversity is important. Not just diversity in race, because there was nothing talked about that, but in age and background and experience and in ideas. Because someone in a review said, why, what is it that we're doing and why is this good for our business? Right? Which means they took ownership. They had some thoughts and background and things that caused them to want to understand why the company operates this way. So it's important to have a wealth of, I would say, diversity within your organization from all of those different levels, backgrounds, experiences, and things, because it allows you to grow. Because people will push you in different directions, because a lot of times, again, we get on autopilot in our thinking process, right? So I really love that. I love that they were intentional about answering the question by creating change and then getting everyone to buy into the change because of what they believed, right? Not just creating some different process, but creating a process that created an end result that benefited the team, right?
Absolutely.
So that's what I took away from the story. I thought it was an amazing story.
Absolutely. Those both stories that we read today were amazing, and I want to continue to encourage our audience to send in stories. We're going to read them. We're going to talk about them, discuss them, but we really appreciate the stories that you send. It means the world to us, and we want to keep growing our platform and growing the amount of stories that we can read on air and share how you view your story and the lessons learned. So I want to again thank my co-host Pete. Go ahead and jump in.
Yeah. I was just saying two things just to piggyback off of Stephanie and your comments regarding Michael's story. An old adage, right? Never confuse activity for results, right? So I love that they got to the focus of delivering results. And there's another old adage: if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. So they really, hey, we got all these ideas, but what are we really going to funnel down to help us achieve our wildly important goals? And I've been blessed. I mean, there's a great program from Franklin Covey, 4 Disciplines of Execution, and it talks about if you have more than 1 or 2 wildly important goals, then it's just noise, and your team is confused as to what's the biggest priority. And it sounds like Michael and his team really did an awesome job of kind of drilling down to, hey, this is it. We're going to be looking at the outcome rather than just the busyness.
Right.
Yes. And just to remind you all, it's real stories, real people, real lessons, right? The stories that we read today were about business, but we want to hear stories about your life. There's all kinds of lessons and all kinds of experiences that we all have, just like Marvin shared, just a life experience he had growing up and in high school. So we want to hear from you in all of your stories and what really has made an impact in your life.
Right. And our goal is to share them. We want to use your stories to have impact in others' lives. So thank you for sending them in. Pete, any closing words from you?
No, we learn better through stories and analogies. So just say it one more time. We'd love to hear your stories and have everybody learn from them.
All right. Thank you again, everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode.